Ooh, robots. All right. Hi, everybody online too. Let's get it going. I'm excited. Um, all right. So this is very exciting for me to chat with all of you about this. Cats are my favorite thing in the world. So we're gonna talk about some fossil cats, primarily Pleistocene. We'll focus on the Pleistocene a little bit more. Oh,
Probably change your
yes.
thing to just the little one, the little minus, or the
Yes.
single one of those two.
Ooh, press the button. There we go. We'll do. Whoop. What did I do? All right. Well, there we go. We're gonna get right into it.
Okay,
So there we go. Okay. So who the heck is this guy? We're gonna start with that. Get that out of the way quick. So my name is Nico Spadafora. I own and operate the Fossil Team, which is a little side company I got teaching paleontology. It is a passion project, and I love it. Um, and I dip my toes into a lot of fields. Paleontology a little bit with the Fossil Team, which is my passion and love. I did a lot of zoology as well, tracking things, and working at the zoo as an intern for a while. I've worked with a lot of big cats and elephants and crocodiles and all sorts of things, and then survival skills as well. I not how not to die in the woods. Which on that note, I was doing that today, and I've been in the woods since 5:30 this morning. So if I yawn, forgive me. um, but yeah, so in North America, we actually have a lot of cat species. And so I listed them out, all the modern species, and we'll go from the smallest all the way to the largest real quick. So our smallest species currently living in North America, this includes, like Central America and Canada as well, is the margay, which is this cute little guy here. I'll move Mackenzie out of the way. But yeah, the margay, it's this tiny little cat. Doesn't get more than like 7 pounds. Uh, Primarily in the most southern parts of Mexico and Central America. After that, you have the domestic cats. Those are mine. It's Puma and Rufus. They're adorable. And then after that, we have this weird looking thing. It's called the Jaguarundi. Uh, Very odd, mysterious type of cat. Also primarily in Central America. After that, you've got the ocelot, uh, which is a more well-known smaller cat. The ocelot does have populations reaching into Texas and Arizona, um, but they're primarily also a Central American cat. Following that, we've got the Canadian lynx. Guess where it's from? Uh, Lynx, Mexico. You're right. You got it. Perfect. Lynx canadensis. And then after that, a little bigger, they're about tied for size, is going to be the bobcat. Bobcats end up being a little heavier than Canadian lynx, but Canadian lynx have longer legs, so they look taller. Um, Following that, we've got the mountain lion. And then the largest cat currently in North America would be the jaguar. And there's a small population that has made it back into the United States, also in Arizona and New Mexico, and I believe Texas as well. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the talk. So we'll hold that note. But these are our modern big cats in North America. Um, with that, cats do have a deep history in the natural uh, timeline. The Feliforma family shows up around 40 million years ago. Today, the Feliforma family uh, consists of the Fusa, which is an animal native to Madagascar. You've got all of the wild cats today, but also mongoose and civets and hyenas. It's a very big family, and none of them, other than cats, really look like cats, but they are in the Feliforma family. Um, From there, we have a common ancestor to all the cats. It would be Proailurus, which is currently recognized as the first cat cat. It shows up around 25 to 30 million years ago. And it almost looks this paleo art that I used here has it looking a lot like a fossa, uh, showing that deep ancestry with the other cats there. Um, so some of you guys are probably going to be familiar with this, the false saber-toothed cats, the false cats, the nimravids. We have a lot of them from the John Day fossil beds. Um, and a few that we have here, we have like Smilus, uh, Nimravis, which is the namesake of the family, and then we've also got this guy, Hoplophonius, which is one of the bigger ones. Um, and a fun fact, I have a Hoplophonius skull coming in for Fossil Team soon, which I'm very excited about. And I believe so, yes, if I remember correctly when I was putting these together. If not just John Day, but North America in particular. Hoplophonius. It is covered up. I will move this and show you. Hoplophonius. There you go. Oh, look, it disappeared up top. Cool. We'll keep it there. The little control bar. But yeah, Hoplophonius, really cool thing. The false saber-toothed cats are really cool because they kind of do the cat thing before true cats really came around, right? They were filling that cat niche. And what you find in nature, what I like to tell a lot of my students in fossil team is that evolution is really lazy. It likes to reuse designs. And so you'll see often with the canine form and the cat form with predators popping up a lot in mammal forms, right? So if we look back, uh, or rather, let me rephrase that. If we look at like Australia, where you don't have any native cats and dogs back in the day, you had things like the marsupial lion, which filled that cat niche and basically became a cat without being a cat. It was actually more closely related to koalas. Um, and that'll pop up on our map here in a little bit. Which is very exciting and cool. So same thing with is anybody familiar with the thylacine or the Tasmanian wolf? It's the same idea. It's a possum basically that filled a wolf niche when there was no wolf in the area. Niche being a job in the natural environment. Uh, on that note, oh, I gotta click again. There we go. Um, in the fossil record in North America, we have this thing called the cat gap, where cat-like fossils and cat fossils tend to disappear. We don't find many, and we don't really know why. The information kind of goes all over the place. One of the theories being that, climate change, which happens a lot in the ice age, get really, really hot periods and really, really cold periods, and uh, or not the ice age, the Cenozoic era, I should say, which is, the age of mammals. Um, and so we think we see a cold period where a lot of the cat or cat adjacent animals tend to disappear. There's also the ever-present volcanic activity that people seem to bring up a lot in this time zone. Another theory is that these things, the like Amphision, which is a type of bear dog, if you're familiar with those, tend to become very prevalent during that time, and it's thought that they might have outcompeted a lot of those cat or cat-like predators at during that period of time. That being said, we get into the Pliocene of North America, and I want to point out as we go forward from this point, this talk was put together, and I'm doing a trial run with this too. So thanks for being my guinea pigs a little bit. Um, through Fossil Team, a friend of mine and I are working on a big project together where we're trying to put together a museum exhibit that could go to museums all over. That's primarily about cats of North America. And so a lot of the paleo art that I'm going to use from this slide forward is art that my buddy has done. His name's Hodari. He lives in Mexico. He's a really cool dude. Um, Wonderful paleo artist. So I'll point out the majority of his stuff too, because he's like the other half of this fun passion project I'm working on. But speaking of which, this is one of his drawings. This is a cat called Adelphalurus. You can start to see those sabers starting to come out. Adelphalurus is recognized as a very early true cat, maybe the start of the saber-toothed cat line with those big pointy teeth. We also have Dinofelis, which is another saber-tooth adjacent cat, very widespread. Today, the two most prevalent cats on the planet are going to be the cougar and the leopard. And Dinofelis would have been that during this time, during the Pliocene here. We've also got Barbarofelis, which is kind of one of the last of that Nimravid line, part of its own family, the Barbarophilids. So really exaggerated chin. I'm blanking on the name of that feature in the chin where the chin kind of follows the sabers down. And it was kind of like the last of its kind, but still filling that cat niche and competing with these other animals like Adelphalurus and Dinofelis. And then, excitingly for me, in this talk, coming up is this guy, Meganterion, who is currently recognized as the ancestor to Smilodon, the saber-toothed tiger. And I will say I didn't bring them in because I didn't know how much table space we'd have, but I brought a lot of the cat skulls for this exhibit that we're putting together. And one of them is a Meganterion. So if we'd like to see that later, I can bring them in. We can take a look and compare some things, depending on how fast I go through this talk. Because the Pleistocene, like I said, we're going to spend more time on that. So that being said, Pleistocene North America, the Ice Age. Is anybody here familiar with the Bering Land Bridge, the Bering Strait? Excellent. So this is a fun little slide I built, kind of explaining it for people. So we'll go through it really quick. So here is a map of what the planet supposedly looked like when the Bering Land Bridge was visible. The lower sea levels, which exposed a lot of that land. You can see it like in Europe as well. A lot of those spaces that are normally underwater are not in Europe, so it's not just in that Russia Alaska zone that we're also familiar with. And then even in South America too, and Florida, you can see how chunky Florida is right here with that lower sea level. But with the cats and a lot of the other mammals of the Pleistocene, we had some saber-toothed cat species that were already in North America from some prior crossings at this point. So we had those, and they moved down into South America at some point in an event in time we call the Great American Interchange, where we had animals from North America moving south into South America and vice versa. Xenarthran animals, South American animals moving up into North America. So things like sloths and armadillos and anteaters, right? And unfortunately for the South American animals, they didn't do as well as the North American animals, because a lot of those South American animals are now extinct. Things like Macrauchenia and the giant ground sloths. The giant ground sloths did pretty good for a while, but they didn't make it through the last of the Pleistocene, of course. So that's how we got things like Smilodon and this other species, Homotherium, which we'll talk about in a little bit, down in South America. Now our pantherine cats and other felidae, like the ancestors of the cougar, were over in Asia and Africa. And at some point, these species started to cross over, and we get our first family of cats that aren't part of the Macaroidean family, which is the saber-toothed cats. And so we got our Pantherine and Felidae family cats. So things like jaguars and cougars, and the American lion, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And then as sea levels rose and fell, we had another crossing at another point, giving us the cave lion over in North America as well. So there was a gap. This happened with mammoths as well, which it's why we have woollies and Columbians. The Columbians would have crossed first, established in North America, and then during the next crossing is when we got our woolly mammoths over here. But they're close enough that they could, still interbreed, which is pretty cool. It didn't go just the one way, though. It wasn't just animals moving into North America. We also had some of those. And then I forgot to talk about that. We also had a lot of those cats moving down into South America as well, which is why we have like jaguars and cougars in South America today as well. But yeah, so we also had animals moving the other way. And so that's why we have things like Homotherium throughout basically the entirety of the planet. Which is really cool. We have different species of Homotherium. One of the other nicknames I've heard for this species is the cat that almost took over the world, because you find fossils of Homotherium in every single continent except Australia and Antarctica. And then there's our little explanation there of the marsupial lion down in Australia, where none of the cats ever got. Now there's a lot of big house cats down. Okay. Can you hear me now? There we go.
Loud and
Yeah.
clear. Yep.
Perfect. I will stop touching the thing. I will just hold the microphone. I apologize. Not machine compatible. So yeah, anyways, the cookie cutter cat, related to that Homothere line. Xenosmilus is a southern species. We find its fossils in Florida. It's known from pretty complete fossils, which is pretty cool, pretty complete skeletons. And it's a really cool species here. Come on, do the thing. There we go. So here's a look at that skeleton here. It's a very large cat, a very large homothere with an abnormally small head. And its nickname, the cookie cutter cat, is specific.
Rat. We lost sound again.
Microphone die? Can you hear us now?
Now we can.
Okay. It might be losing battery, maybe. Okay. We'll keep an eye on it. Um, but yeah, so those sabers and incisors are incredibly sharp. And so the idea of the cookie cutter cat is that it lived with big animals like Toxodon, which is this big behemoth of an animal, one of those Xenarthran animals that made it a little up into North America, but not too far, and would have eventually gone extinct. Um, Nothing related to it today. It was its own kind of distinct thing. But the cookie cutter cat could potentially walk up to these animals. Okay, are we good now? We just changed the batteries. Maybe?
We're good
That's not.
now.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, um, the Bearcat, really, really cool. And Xenosmilus did not last too far into the Pleistocene. It died out about early to mid Pleistocene. So it actually, this animal in particular, would have never encountered humans crossing over into North America. Um, all right, next, we got a really cool animal, the American cheetah, also known as the false cheetah, Mirae psionyx inexpectata, and also there's a second species, M. trumani. Um, these animals are really cool. Uh, we're still trying to figure out a lot about them, but they're famous because the theory went that these cheetahs were the reason we had, or we still have, pronghorn and why pronghorn are so fast. And that was recently confirmed when we were looking at some preserved, I believe it was cheetah teeth, and looking at the protein uh, that was on those teeth fossils, and finding a lot of pronghorn proteins on that, which is really cool. But the interesting thing about it, it's not truly a cheetah. It's more closely related to the cougar. So here's a skull of one. Um, and in our little slide here, I include a cougar skull on the right there and a cheetah skull on the left. And so looking at the skull on the top, you can see, and there's another uh, front view of the skulls. You can see it kind of almost looks like a mixture between the two, which is really, really cool. So there's a lot of things we don't know about the American cheetah. Um, but it's really fun to hypothesize. And so one of the questions that comes up a lot is, were these things spotted like cheetahs, or were they more just that tawny brown like a cougar, right? And so Hodari here was given that thought, and he drew both. So one with and one without. Now, recently though, so I gave this talk once, about 2 months ago to a teachers conference, and since then there was this really fascinating discovery from the Grand Canyon that was announced in between this talk and that last talk. They found a old petroglyph, and the Grand Canyon is known as prime habitat for American cheetahs. We find a lot of fossils in and around the Grand Canyon. And so this petroglyph, which is right here, uh kind of hard to see, but you can make out the claws and the front legs and the head, and the really interesting pattern. So when Hodari and I have been drawing a lot of these animals for the exhibit, if there's some rock art to go off of, we heavily reference it. So we haven't done our cheetah yet, but Hodari because he's a big nerd like I am, drew his own picture, and that's what he made his look like based on that rock art. He also likes to show teeth a lot. So you'll see that in his cats. Um, but yeah, it's a really cool piece of art, and if it's a cheetah, that might be what it looked like. And that's probably what our cat's going to look like in our exhibit as well. So it's a very, very fun, cool cat. All right. That being said, we're going to talk about the cat that almost took over the world, also known as the scimitar cat, Homotherium. So earlier I said the Homotherium are in every single continent, right? The one here in North America is the weirdest. And I say that because of the way it's built. So Homotherium serum had to compete with a lot of other cats in its environment. It had to compete with the American cheetah. It had to compete with Smilodon, and it had to compete with lions and all sorts of animals. And so, one thing it didn't have to compete with, that it did have to compete with in other environments, was hyenas. Uh, with hyenas also being part of that feliform family, it doesn't take long for these animals to adjust into those shapes. And so what we see with Homotherium serum, which is the North American species, we see a more exaggerated slope on the spine and the shortening of the back legs. We see a stronger bite than other homotheres, and it starts to fill that hyena niche that was absent and unfilled in the North American environment, uh, which is really odd. And they're very weird looking cats. um, that being said, too, Homotherium uh, made headline news recently because we found a baby. We found a mummy of a Homotherium. Now, the Homotherium mummy that we found was not the North American species. It was the Siberian species, which is one of the more well-known ones. It would be Homotherium latidens, which would have functionally looked like your classic saber-toothed cat, uh, but with the shorter Homothere teeth, right? And the mummy is really cool because this is our first look at what a saber-toothed cat would have looked like in life. Now, it is a cub, and cubs of all cats, not just saber-toothed cats, but every single cat species, their cubs look different than they would when they were adults, right? Think like the cheetah, for example. Cheetahs, when they're babies, they have like a basically white back and a black bottom. They functionally look like honey badgers, which is really cool because they're trying to trick other animals and they're like, hey, leave that alone. It's a honey badger when it's not, right? Um, and then like lion cubs, lions are just that tawny color, and mountain lions as well. They have that tawny single color, but when they're cubs, they're spotted and striped to blend in a little more. Um, and so when we look at the homothere, which this is only half of it, we don't have the back end of the baby. Um, we see that really dark, deep red. When the animal grew up, it probably got a little lighter. And this morning, actually, Hodari sent me a paper that just got published about homothere placement in North America and their competition with other cats, and in Siberia as well. That is pertaining to the mummy that they found here. And I think I have another. Oh, nope, we'll go back. There's another picture of the mummy head closer up. It's very odd. Like it's got a big bulbous forehead and the face is more pressed in. It's really interesting. And so the face changes a lot from when they were kittens to when they were adults. So if you look at the skull in the CAT scan there for the mummy versus the adult at the top, the skulls are still pretty similar. That muzzle really extends out from when they're infants like this. So a lot of development from cub to adult. All right. Next we have the Pleistocene jaguar. So other than the few that are up here in Arizona, New Mexico right now, how many of you knew we had jaguars in North America? Like all the way up into like Oregon and stuff? No. Excellent. Yeah, some people did. So, the Pleistocene jaguar is functionally the same animal. Um, so it's got its subspecies name, Panthera onca augusta. Um, the modern jaguar, I believe, is just Onca onca. Um, when you're getting into the subspecies there. But the Pleistocene jaguar, also known as the giant jaguar, is a lot bigger. So if you look at the silhouette there compared to the shoulder height of that animal, the jaguar that would have been up here in North America was a lot bigger. Now, why that is, there's a lot of theories. If it was Bergman's rule, which is the farther away from the equator you get, the larger the body size gets in species to help with um, what is it? Heat retention. If you have more surface area, keep in the heat. So that's why we get bigger animals in the north. So like a black bear in Alaska is going to be a lot bigger than a black bear in Florida, right? Um, now the theory is, yeah, competition with other big cats. But at the end of the day, we don't really know because they are still the same species. And a lot like the other spotted cats, like the leopard, jaguars are very, very adaptable. So this is the modern range of the current jaguar. So the dark red is where you can currently find them. The pink on this map is their historical range, and you can see it getting up into Texas and Arizona and New Mexico there. This next map is all of the states we have found fossil giant jaguar fossils. Almost all of them, which is really neat. And here in Oregon specifically, there is a statue at the Oregon Caves Monument of a jaguar, because when they were discovering the caves and exploring them, they found a fossil jaguar in the cave, which is really cool. Along with black bears and I believe a short-faced bear as well, which is Arctodus. So yeah, they're very cool. Now, when you see an animal like a jaguar, which is typically thought of as a tropical animal, sometimes when they go into other environments, you can see some variation in the pelts of some animals. Like think like wolves, you'll see like the white gray wolves up in the Arctic, stuff like that. And so thinking about a jaguar living up here in like Oregon and Washington, it's just cool to imagine if their pelts got lighter when they're in more alpine and cold temperate rainforest, right? So another fun picture that Hodari and I are gonna include in our exhibit together. All right, and now one of my very favorite fossil animals, the cave lion. So the cave lion is a very well-known species. It ranged in a lot of areas as well, right? And it's pretty well known how cave lions looked because there's a lot of cave art of these animals. This picture here being from the Chauvet Caves in France, where you have a whole pride of lions here. There seemed to be a lot of reverence for lions. When you see cave art and petroglyphs like this, petroglyphs and pictographs, a lot of the time you don't see predators in general. You do not see a lot. And so the fact that there are so many lions in this one cave probably means, we don't know, of course, but that the people that were entering this cave a lot had a big reverence for the lions in those areas. That being said, the cave lion is a really interesting animal because there was a study recently published, and I'm blanking on the name of the researchers involved, So I will try to find that and maybe send it to you guys later. But there was a study of cave lions over time, and the first cave lions you find in the fossil record are absolutely massive, bigger than some of the biggest cats that ever existed. But then you get further and further into the Pleistocene, and they actually get really, really tiny. That last lion down there, being a full-grown female lion, that was smaller than a wolf. But it is a cave lion. So there's still a lot of study going on there as to why that happened, but it's a really interesting trend over the Pleistocene. And one of the theories is that they had a new competitor come into the game there, us, right? Competing with them for a lot of that food, and so they just started to shrink in body size until I guess they shrank into non-existence. um, uh, there are three species currently recognized of what we would call lions, and they jump back and forth on whether it's Panthera leo, spalea, or just Panthera spalea as its own separate species. Right now, the consensus tends to be towards just Panthera spalea, which would be the cave lion, versus Panthera leo, the African lion, which is the modern one. But if we look at the fossils here, considering that they are lions, there would be three, right? You've got the Panthera leo, which would be the African and Asiatic lion reaching over into India. Then you have Panthera spalea, which is the cave lion, the most, uh, turn on there. Remind me later. um, the most widespread of these lions here, ranging over most of Eurasia. So the Eurasian cave lion is a good name for these things as well. And then some going over into Alaska and parts of Canada there, the Yukon, over the land bridge there, and then going south where our Columbian mammoths are, we've got the American lion, Panthera atrox. Now, excitingly, uh, a show came out recently. I just added this yesterday, uh, called Prehistoric Planet. Uh, Prehistoric Planet. It's an Apple TV show. My buddy Darren Naish worked on it, and they just did an Ice Age season. And the first episode features cave lions, so I was very excited to see them. Uh, Spoiler alert, and to my great disappointment, the cave lions were the only animals to die in that episode. So it bummed me out a little bit. But it showed a really interesting feature, which has been documented many times. Cave lions will hunt cave bears. Um, and going specifically after the hibernating bears in those caves, which is really cool. And that's what the documentary was trying to show. Um, if you get the chance to watch it, please do. It looks so good. Apple Plus, Apple TV. So yeah, and the first two seasons are all dinosaurs. So the T-Rex in it looks amazing. And then they did my lions, and I got very excited. And the mammoths. Oh, I could go on and on about the mammoths. So that being said, we talk about our other lion here, the American lion. The American lion doesn't tend to show that decrease in body size. And so right now the American lion is recognized as the largest species of Panthera. However, those there's also bless you. There's also Panthera fossilis, which would have been the ancestor of both the cave and American lion, which was also a little bigger. So the last surviving member of the American Panthera there, other than the jaguar, this would be the largest species in North America. And those first cave lions in that paper would have been a little bigger than the American lion, but the American lion stayed consistently big, whereas the cave lion got smaller over time. And they're very cool. This is a skeleton of the American lion at the La Brea tar pits. We get some lions out of the tar pits. So recently, Kelsey Abrams, who talked here a little while ago, she went to a conference and was talking to me during the conference because she was watching a talk about the American lion, knowing they were my favorite. She was like, "Dude, you're gonna love all this information." So she was, live feeding all this cool stuff from me, and I haven't seen the paper yet. But the person was talking about the potential of the American lion not being a lion, but more of a tiger, because we see some interesting behavior that we'll get into in a little bit. But either way, that'd be really cool to have an American lion or tiger, right? And these things were massive. It's one of the skulls I brought today, so if we have time to look at it, I'll pull it out. But if not, here is the skull compared to the largest modern cat. That is a American lion skull and a Siberian tiger skull. So you can see the lion is a lot bigger still. And one of the things I love to do with the skulls, especially with my students in my classes, is be like, yeah, you've got the bone, but especially with mammals here, you've also got the meat and the hair. So the animal's head would look a lot bigger when it was alive, right? So yeah, they were very big cats. You could probably ride these things if they'd let you. All right, and I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the saber-toothed tiger, the famous Pleistocene cat, right? So, a little bit ago we were just talking about the rock art with the cheetah. There is currently no rock art recognized as any sort of saber-toothed cat. So when we were talking about the Homotherium, and saying that was our first confirmed look at how saber-toothed cats looked in life, as of right now, that's the case. However, I didn't include it in the talk because I couldn't find a picture I could just save. And I didn't have the permission to use it yet. So hopefully soon I'll hear back and they'll let me put it in the slide here. But there is one petroglyph that is currently believed to be a saber-toothed cat. And it is in Arizona, and the fangs are exposed in the picture, which is why they think it's a saber-tooth. And there's some contention back and forth, as there always is. But if it is a saber-toothed cat, based on that location in Arizona, the only saber-toothed cat it could be would be Smilodon fatalis, the saber-toothed tiger, right? So this picture here is what Hodari and I used or made based on that petroglyph. What you see is some ear tufts, which are in that petroglyph. You've got a little bit more of a spotted, stripy coat, kind of like a mixture between a bobcat and a cougar, or not cougar, tiger. You have that bob tail, and the biggest thing is those exposed teeth, right? The big fangs sticking out, because there's been some talk back and forth on whether the teeth were exposed or covered up with these big weird jowls, which looks really funny and goofy. And if this does come out to be, if the consensus ends up being that it is a saber-toothed cat petroglyph, which I can pull the picture up later when we're done with the talk too and show you guys, it would confirm that the teeth are in fact exposed in the Smilodon family. Which then leads to the next question: what do they use those teeth for? This is a drawing done by Mauricio Anton, who does a lot of cat drawings in particular. He wrote a whole book on saber-toothed cats, which is phenomenal. Actually, that's what I should have brought for show and tell today, was my saber-toothed cat books. But this shows them using the teeth to clinch down into that throat a little bit more effectively than lions. The interesting thing about saber-tooth cats and saber teeth in general, even though the saber-tooth cats are the most famous for having saber teeth, they're not the first. We see it in a lot of other mammals. We see it in the musk deer, which is alive today still. They have saber teeth. And then, speaking of Kelsey Abrams, the Gorgonopsids have saber teeth, and she's a big Gorgon person, and so she rubs it in my face a little bit. She's like, I got him before you did. Yeah, very, very. That's a Permian, so before the dinosaurs. Um, so the consensus, though, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is that saber-toothed cats are social, and those sabers are fragile. And so people go back and forth on whether they're using them like Mauricio Anton showed here in this diagram, or whether they were used more like a precision kill, where the prey would work together like lions to wrestle the animal, or not the prey, the sabers would work together to wrestle the prey down to the ground like lions, and then once the whole pride was holding the prey down, one would come in and like surgically kill it really quick, like with a quick stab with those teeth. So people go back and forth. We tried to emulate that in our saber here by showing, which you do see in the muscular structure, very, very muscular front legs and a neck, versus the back legs being a little bit less muscular. So clearly an ambush predator, not a pursuit carnivore like wolves are, and people. um, and Smilodon fatalis is known from a lot of fossils coming from La Brea. Now, speaking of La Brea, saber-toothed tiger or saber-toothed cat, right? So La Brea shows us something really interesting based on the amount of animals coming out of La Brea. And we'll make this a little game because we're going to have fun here. I'm going to include you guys in this. How many direwolf specimens have come out of La Brea? Who's got a guess? Hundreds? 2,500. And anybody online's got a number too? If you want to shout it out. 25,000. Okay. Okay. So the answer, according to what I researched, is about 4,000 plus or minus. 4,000 individual dire wolves from the La Brea tar pits. That being said, the dire wolf would be the most common animal coming out of there. Followed up behind that would be Smilodon at about 2,000 plus or minus, of course. So very common animals. Comparatively, the American lion, we only have about 80. And it gets less from there, right? The giant jaguar, we've got about 5. Homotherium, 1 or 2 maybe. And then the jury's still out on whether we have a cheetah from there. So what does this tell us? So looking at jaguars today, we know they're antisocial. They're solitary creatures that move around by themselves. So it would make a lot of sense to only have a few coming out of the tar pits, which is a predator trap. You have an animal like a mammoth or a bison or a horse or whatever, some sort of prey animal that gets stuck in the tar, starts calling for help, and it attracts all the predators, right? So things like the giant jaguar, which we know jaguars are solitary animals, you'd only have one probably coming if there's one nearby, right? That being said, dire wolves, which wolves are very social animals, and the dire wolf, definitely no different there. They're very social, so you're going to have whole packs of them coming towards the prey and getting stuck in the tar, right? That being said, we see a ton of Smilodon as well. And so the theory with that is that they were pretty social as well. Probably not as social as dire wolves and gray wolves, right? In huge packs, but probably think of like a lion pride, like 4 or 5 animals in a pride. So you wouldn't have to deal with one saber tooth, you'd have to deal with more than one, right? But then comparatively, we have less lions, right? Which is where this theory with the American tiger thing comes around, right? So the lions today live in savanna environments, and the La Brea tar pits were not a savanna. They were like a scrub forest back in the day before it was a city. And in a scrub forest, also competing with other groups of animals like dire wolves and apparently Smilodon, the American lion, the idea is that it could have adjusted into that tiger role rather than a lion role. So being big, muscling other animals like sabers and direwolves off their prey that they caught, catching their own prey on their own, hunting a lot more like a tiger than a lion. Because also with the American lion, the jury's still out on even if it is a lion, right? It's Panthera for sure, but nobody can agree if it's a lion or not. And so this theory with the not as many individuals coming out compared to the other two uh, does kind of lead towards that idea. That being said, why is there more lions than the other three animals there? The jaguar, the homothere, and the cheetah, right? Um, and I say question mark on the cheetah because the skulls are so close, it might also just be a cougar, which were also in the area, right? Um, so this probably shows us more competition between those antisocial carnivores, right? So the jaguar probably would have been muscled out of areas a little bit more by the lion, and so they were probably just not as common in those areas. And then Homotherium in general, wherever you find their fossils, tend to be in those savanna environments. So these animals were built for chasing things. Um, so it would make same with the cheetah. So you'd expect to not find them in a place that's not so open to run around in, right? So yeah, they're very, very interesting there. So to kind of start wrapping this up, I wanted to show you guys a little size comparison between these cats, right? So here's me. uh, and to give you an idea, I'm about 6 foot, about 200 pounds. And then we've got our cougar. Cougars measure in the modern cougar measures in about 7 foot 10 inches, including that tail, and they get about 117 to 159 pounds. Um, with that, the American cheetah is pretty close to that, about 8 foot 5 inches with that tail, and somewhere around 150 pounds. Very, very close to cougar, just a little taller with those longer legs built for chasing things, right? After that, you've got the giant jaguar, Pleistocene jaguar. Jaguars tend to have shorter tails, so that length does shorten up a little bit, but they are very bulky. So we're probably looking around 233 pounds, on the average jaguar, average giant jaguar. Oh, with that, we've got our homothere coming in, definitely increasing the size there. Homotherium does not have that long of a tail. They've got the bob tail. So again, that shortens up a little bit. So we're looking at about 5 foot 4 inches. And they could probably, especially the big males, could probably get up to about 440 pounds. So big jump in size there. After that, we've got Smilodon fatalis. So Smilodon fatalis is not the largest Smilodon species. The larger species would be Populator, which lives down in South America, and definitely increases size. But still, Smilodon is a big animal. So 5 foot 8 inches and about 350 to 600 pounds. So still a very big cat. Then we've got Xenosmilus coming in, about the same length as Smilodon, but a little heavier, 660 to 770 pounds. And then after that, we've got the cave lion, getting big. So 7 foot 9 inches and about 800 pounds. And then finally, wrapping up with that, we've got the American lion, which would have gotten somewhere around 1,100 pounds. So very, very big, almost a ton, half a ton, a cat. And like I said, you could probably ride these things. um, so yeah, there we are with our cougar again, just to really nail home how big that lion is. Those lions are. And it's gonna wrap up our talk. So yeah. Cats. All right. Let me stop the share. And there we go. All right. Huh? Stop recording. Yes.